We will check in with Ross Tucker, CBS Sports, Westwood One analyst, and also college football analyst as well, host of Ross Tucker Football Podcast. Mike in Cincinnati joins us. Hi, Mike. What's on your mind today? Hey, Mike.
Hey, Dan. How you doing?
Mike?
Yeah, hey, Dan.
Yeah.
I think I'm in a bad spot here. I better call you back. Thanks. Sorry.
All right, Mike. Sorry to interrupt your day. Let's bring in Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, and he called the Browns-Eagles game last Saturday. He's got the Eagles at the Jets on Friday night. Hi, Ross. How are you?
Dan, I'm fantastic. I think I have better reception than that guy. I think I'm ready to go.
Most interesting team in the NFL is who?
There's a bunch of different ways I could go with that one. You know who I think I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with the team I just saw on Saturday, the Cleveland Browns. I'm fascinated by them. I said this today on the Ross Tucker Football Podcast, Dan. I think there's a real possibility, probably unlikely, but there's a possibility that they become the first team in NFL history to have 4 different quarterbacks start at least 4 games. Now, hear me out on this, okay? First of all, when they made the trade with the Jaguars, the Travis Hunter trade to move down, pick up next year's first-round pick, that's a loud signal to everybody that we're looking at this over the next few years. We're not all in to try to win this year, etc. So we all get that. I understand why they're starting Flacco at the start of the year. They have a tough schedule. They can sell the vets that we went to the playoffs a couple years ago with him. He gives us the best chance to win. But they traded for Kenny Pickett for a reason. And I think deep down, Stefanski thinks that maybe Kenny Pickett could be his Sam Darnold, his Baker Mayfield. I mean, neither one of those guys started to really click until they were on their 4th team. This is Kenny's 3rd team, and I think in Stefanski's offense, I believe he thinks he can get Kenny Pickett to play at a pretty high level. I'm not sure I really believe that Kenny can do that. But then they also drafted a couple rookies, and that's been well documented. Dylan Gabriel in the 3rd round, they obviously like. Shedeur Sanders only played 1 preseason game in the 5th round, but he played well. People want to see what he has. So I think there's a reasonable scenario where Flacco starts the first, let's call it 3 or 4. They're 0-3, 1-3, whatever. They put Pickett in to see how he looks, take him for a spin. And then they want to try to find out about both Gabriel and Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they hit on one of those guys. Maybe one of them looks like a very good, inexpensive backup. But they kind of need to find out about both those guys before next year's first round, where they have 2 first-round picks. They might both be in the top 10. They're highly likely, if they didn't hit on any of these guys, to get a franchise quarterback or try to in the top 10 next year. So the Browns might set a very interesting record in terms of the number of quarterbacks to start multiple games in a season.
I always like to look at coaching staffs to see what decisions they make with their quarterbacks. Like the Giants with Brian Daboll. Jackson Dart, to me, makes more sense. I don't think they're going to be that good of a team, but this coach wants to keep his job with a very difficult schedule. The Colts situation, Shane Steichen wants to keep his job. The Browns situation, that coach wants to keep his job as well. And as a result, you got Russell Wilson, Daniel Jones, and then you're going to have Joe Flacco. I don't think it's a surprise that they're going with somebody who's a little more proven, and they can't really roll the dice on somebody younger. What do you think?
Well, and here's what's interesting. I tend to think, by the way, that the Browns will probably give Stefanski and the GM, Andrew Berry, another year. Otherwise, why would those guys have made that trade that they made? Unless, Stan, they think that making that trade helps them get another year, right? Like maybe it's a chicken and the egg thing. The Colts thing to me is like the perfect example, okay, of the dichotomy between fans, media, and to some extent, even some scouts and front office executives versus coaches. I have seen this as long as I've been around the NFL, right? Fans, media, some front office executives, they love upside. They love physical traits. They love potential. They love guys like Anthony Richardson, right? Meanwhile, coaches, you know what they love? They love guys that they can trust, that are able to execute the concepts that they're given and that the plays that are called, guys that obviously are consistent. That's what coaches value. You know how I know this, Dan? Multiple times in my career, I was told by an assistant coach, hey, the front office hates you, like, or this guy hates you. But the coach is always like, I was never the high upside guy. I was never the traits guy. I was never someone that you get excited. Oh, yes, we have Ross Tucker and his short arms and average athleticism starting. Like, nobody ever felt that way. But the coaches, they knew I wasn't going to be the reason why we lost. I was going to do the right thing every time. They could trust me. I was going to play as hard as I possibly can. I was consistent. And ultimately, coaches have to win. It's year 3 for Shane Steichen. He needs to win this year. If he thought that Anthony Richardson would help them win more games this year, I can assure you he would be starting. He doesn't. Now, remember this too, Dan. People lose sight of this. You know, when the announcement was made yesterday, I called that Colts-Titans game for CBS last year, late in the season. It had been a week or two earlier that several of the veterans had sat down with Anthony Richardson to go over with him what the standard should be and what their expectations are. This is more than halfway through his second year. DeForest Buckner and Quentin Nelson, those guys, this is out there, it's public. They had to sit down and say, like, listen, in walkthroughs, you need to be like this. You know, after practice, you need to do stuff like this. You know, unfortunately, he's a really gifted, talented, but young, immature kid who has gotten hurt a bunch, doesn't really understand what it means to be a professional. I don't know if he knows that now or not, but Shane Steichen's not waiting around to find out, right? Like, Shane Steichen's like, you know what? Daniel Jones, he can win. I saw it with the Giants. In my system, he'll win. He'll do what I ask of him. He's a pro. I'm attaching my life, my family's livelihood, my kids, where I'm going to live next year. I'm going to put more faith and trust in Daniel Jones that he'll give me a better chance to stay living in Indianapolis, Indiana next year than Richardson.
Talking to Ross Tucker, the Ross Tucker Football Podcast. And he had Browns-Eagles last Saturday. He's got the Eagles at the Jets coming up on Friday night. Would you rather have the career of Joe Flacco or Phillip Rivers?
Joe Flacco. Yeah. Now, listen, Phillip Rivers, I think, is a better player. I think Phillip Rivers has a better chance, maybe a really good chance, to be a Hall of Famer. But first of all, Phillip Rivers never got to play in a Super Bowl, right? So forget even winning it. You either have experience playing in a Super Bowl or you haven't. I haven't. I've talked to guys that have. It's like a line of demarcation as an NFL player. You either played in the Super Bowl or you didn't. And then Flacco, first of all, Flacco made a ton of money. They probably made around the same money. And Flacco's still going, by the way. But Flacco won a Super Bowl, and no matter how good an individual career is, there is nothing like winning a championship. I can speak to this, Dan. I am so glad I got a chance to play college football, and very thankful for 7 years in the NFL. In 18 years of football, I won one championship. It was my junior year of high school. It was 30 years ago. Okay, it was 1995. I can tell you about every one of those games. I can tell you about those guys. When I go back to my hometown, okay, and I go to 3rd and Spruce, or I go to any of these bars, and I see these guys, right? I am not friends with these guys. I don't text them. I don't even have their numbers. But when I see them, we give each other a hug and we reminisce about what it was like to win the Berks IC championship in 95, what it was like to beat Governor Mifflin. There is nothing, an individual accomplishment, in my experience, can never even come close to the shared joy and the shared experience of a team accomplishment. Give me the team accomplishment and winning the Super Bowl and the bond that you have with those guys forever over anything individual.
Joe Flacco or Dan Marino's careers?
Okay, are we talking careers or are we talking lifestyle? Because I've thought about this. And being
Everything.
Dan Marino in Miami in the 80s had to be really, really fun.
It might still be.
I mean, Dan, I've said this, okay? And this is a great topic for the rest of the show. I'll program the next 30 minutes. Paulie's not doing his job anyway, okay? If you could be any athlete in any era at any time for everything that went along with it, okay? I'm just sitting here thinking, Dan Marino in the 80s in Miami, like Miami Vice, like stuff off the field. I mean, Dan Marino had a top 5 life of any athlete I can even fathom for what that must have been like for him. So Joe Flacco, I mean, great, Baltimore. I would rather have probably Joe Flacco's career, but I'd rather have lived Dan Marino's life.
Safe travels. Great to talk to you as always. Thanks for joining us.
All right, see you guys.
That's Ross Tucker, host of the Ross Tucker Football Podcast.